Hello guys, it's the Caribbean Bookworm, and today I'll be giving you a review finally for the third entry in the Dark Tower series, The Wastelands. Let's go. This is going to be my review for The Wastelands, the third Dark Tower book, and sorry I took a while. I've been pretty busy, school, etc, etc, but we have no time for that. That deserves its own video. So, trying to keep this as spoiler free as I can, the third book is about Roland going on his quest to the tower, or continuing his quest to the tower after the events of the second book. If you read or at least know something about the Dark Tower lore or read the second book, then you know he has his ka-tet, this group of people of which he's supposed to go on to this journey, this destiny with, and these people accompany him during his journey. And I won't mention specifically who's in this particular group since 2 extra people get added in it, but spoilers. And he goes on to the next step, which is the Wastelands. I particularly enjoyed this book a lot more than the second and even the first book because this book does a lot of world building. I mean, you can see the size of the book is really thick, so there's a lot of content in it. This book does amazing world building, so you get more of the dynamics between Roland and other people from Midworld and our characters from our world with people from Midworld. So you get a bit of a contrast and you get to see more of how Midworld itself actually changed or was affected by whatever happened. We still don't know what happened. Something happened and the world moved on, and now you're seeing the aftermath, or you're seeing part of it at least. The pros and cons of the book. I'm going to start with the pros. The pros of the book are definitely Stephen King's writing. It definitely improved. That's a funny thing. I always heard it from other Dark Tower reviews and other people who've read the Dark Tower and recommended for me to read it. They always say to me that, hey, you'll actually start to see where Stephen King started to get more and more of a maturity in his writing style, and where he became more of the writer that we recognize him to be today. And you actually start to see that indeed in the first book. He was still a very good storyteller. He created this whole world when he was 19 years old. But you get to see that he starts to write more and more eloquently. He expresses the characters' feelings and thoughts more fluent. So definitely the biggest pro that I have for this book is the writing style. The writing style improved so much, but that does also lead to a small little con that is still present in all the 3 Dark Tower books, but we'll get to that later. The second pro that I have for the book is its references to the previous books. I mean, that's going to be obvious. It's part of a series and a big one. Still nice when you're so far into the book and you still see throwbacks from the Gunslinger, which is, it feels at least like way back. So it's nice to have those little tidbits for people who've read on from the first book and made it this far. So references like that are really nice. And last pro that I have for the book, and it relates to the first pro, the writing style, is that it has interesting characters. So the protagonists of the book are characters that you've mainly met one way or another. I'm not going to spoil you there again. But they're more fleshed out in this book, so they're given more backstory, they're given more character development, so you actually start to feel more attached and invested in whatever these characters are doing. So when something bad happens, which it does happen, then you actually feel for them and you feel afraid. And also the protagonists, or I should say one protagonist, or it wasn't actually really a protagonist even. Now on to the cons. One con which is always persistent in these Dark Tower books, I realized, is that it does at times drag. So at times it does feel like it's going slow. You need to have some sort of persistence to go on with this series. Otherwise you're going to read the same parts over and over again, and eventually you're going to give up and you're going to decide, man, I'm going to read something else. But if you made it through the third book, then you're definitely on board with the Dark Tower already, so that's not a big of a problem, I'd say. Another con, and this is a bit of a spoilery territory, so if you don't want spoilers, go to this time like step down below, like just skip this part. Another con that I found of this book is it's more of a nitpick actually, but I found the character of Susanna Dean not as interesting as she was in The Drawing of the Tree. In The Drawing of the Tree, she was actually the best part of the book. Her dynamic with Detta and Odetta was one of the most fascinating aspects for almost everyone who read the book. But in this book, she's there, she's good, but she's not as interesting as she was back in The Drawing of the Tree. But maybe they're going to flesh that out further in the series, so I'm hoping for that. The Wastelands was an enjoyable read. It was a fun read actually, and although I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, it's more again of a 4.5 out of 5 stars in my book. I only gave it a 5 out of 5 stars because I didn't find it as like dragging as The Drawing of the Tree, which I know it's a lot of people's favorites, and maybe after finishing the series I can see why, but at this point I don't see it as my favorite. This one was a bit more enjoyable for me than The Drawing of the Tree, so hence why I give it a 5 out of 5 stars. If the ranking was more specific, I would have gave it something like a 4.75 out of 5 stars, but I'm not going to get too technical with that. If, like me, somehow The Drawing of the Tree wasn't your favorite, then push on to The Wastelands. I'm pretty sure that you're going to enjoy The Wastelands. For me, it's the most interesting of the bunch. Even if The Gunslinger was in itself, for me, pretty fascinating, I still found the world building in this, and a particular scene that happened near the end of the book. Again, Stephen King keeps doing that at the end of every Dark Tower books. You expect it to like slow down, and then boom, something happens, and you're like, no, I need to read the next book. Jeez. Something happens. For those who did read the book, that something I'm talking about is a character, an antagonist. An antagonist happens. Yeah, I love that. So that's it for my review for The Wastelands, guys. And next on, I'm taking a break with The Dark Tower because I have things to do for school. But that's not the reason. The reason is I'm still reading Stephen King. I'm actually reading Pet Sematary because, hey, it's the month. It's my favorite month of the year. So I'm reading Pet Sematary, and then I am taking a break from Stephen King to actually read some of the books that I have to read for school, which aren't that bad this year, because this year, at least for Dutch, we get to choose our own books, and for English, we have some interesting books, like 13 Reasons Why and Animal Farm, so I don't have a problem with those. But one of my books for Dutch is actually a book I intend to read for this month as well, even if that ends up being in November. I don't care. It's Halloween based. It's the book Hex by Thomas Alde Heuveldt. It's by a Dutch author, a young author, and it got thumbs up from Stephen King himself. So I'm looking forward to that. And the premise of the book Hex sounds really interesting. So to support fellow Dutch literature, if you're interested in the book Hex, I'm not going to give the synopsis. Jeez, I think that took long. I'm just going to give the Goodreads link in the comments below and check the book out. Please support Dutch literature, man. Hope you enjoyed my review, and stay tuned because I am going to try my best to keep doing more reviews weekly, or at least per 2 weeks. So stay tuned. Bye.